It is the 9th, believe it or not, episode of Fiberside Chats, and I'm so excited today to be able to interview Julie Benac of Fresh Lotus Design. So she is someone that is a longtime friend of mine, and I'm just really excited to be able to have a conversation with her today about all things fiber. So if you can, Julie, feel free to come and join me on camera. All right.
All right.
So,
there is a hand on my head.
there you go. Wait, let me see if I can lower. Wait, hang on. Lower hand. Okay. I think I put your hand down. Wait, no, it's still there. Hang on.
It's still there. I don't know how I did it, but it's like, hi everybody.
Okay, there you go. There you go. You had like a Simpsons, wave hello. All right.
Yeah, I don't know.
There you go. There you go. No worries. No worries. So, so today we are going to be talking all things fibery. And if you are joining us today for the first time, welcome. But also yesterday I did another episode of Fiberside Chat as a special because it is the 2-year anniversary of the Wool and Fiber Arts Group being put together. And I think that's just so amazing. So Julie, one of my first questions for you is, since this is a definite different type of medium or a way of interacting with the fiber community, I'm just curious, what is something that either you love about the Wool and Fiber Arts Group, or what has being a member of it done as far as changing the way that you interact with people in the fiber arts community?
Wow, that's a loaded one, girl.
I like to start them hard, fresh out the gate.
Oh my goodness. Ellen, Ellen Zawada, she lives close by me. And, when I've talked to her and seen her and told her it's like, do you understand what you did? Do you understand what you did for us fiber artists? What you did for all of us when so many of us, I know myself and Patrick, we were just getting off the ground. We were just getting started when the pandemic hit. It was, how has it affected me? It is making me now count the days until I can quit my day job. That's what it's doing. And not only that too, but now that in-person shows are starting up, and even before then, the friendships that us artists have been able to make, the connections we've been able to make with our customers, they're not just customers, they're friends now. And now when we go out to in-person shows, they're coming up to us and saying, oh my gosh, I feel like I know you. I feel like I've known you for 2 years. And well, you have, they have. And it's for what Waffle did is it's just amazing. And it's opened up friendships that I wouldn't have had otherwise, or they would have been much more difficult to create, just standing in a booth talking to people, but in Waffle, you can get into discussions, you can find out what they really like. It's opened up a world for all of us artists. I'm sure you can relate. So yeah, that's been the best thing. The friendships by far. And Patrick will agree, because the fiber community has just welcomed us with open arms, and it's been really special, really nice.
Yeah. Now, I don't know about you and your comfort level with computers and technology and all of that. But I know being myself a child of the 80s, I kind of grew up with computers, and I would go even before Facebook, and even before they had AOL and Prodigy and all of that. I would go into these chat rooms and these chat boards, and for the most part, it was you were talking to people that you couldn't see their face, you couldn't see pictures, it was all text, but it was a great way to connect with people that maybe didn't go to your school, or they weren't in your neighborhood. And I love that. And so, as technology kind of improved and Facebook groups started to grow, I just thought, wow, this is really cool that there are all of these different ways that you can connect with people, but also seeing pictures, also seeing the things that they're creating. And, been, and I'm sure like yourself, you know, part of many different fiber art groups. But for me, I definitely agree with you that like the Wool and Fiber Arts group, I know maybe like you're saying you're counting down the days, but actually like for myself anyway, I really decided to take the plunge and, you know, quit my day job and actually become, you know, a full-time, you know, artist and teacher because of it, like you said, because of the community, because of the supportiveness of the people in the group. And I'm thinking like, wow, you know, there are people out there that maybe they're not in my neighborhood, maybe they're not like local to me, but when I was talking with Ellen yesterday saying, how cool is it that we can connect with people in Australia, or that, you know, we can connect with people in different time zones, and that they all share this love of fiber. Because as you know, when you find someone that loves, you know, anything fibery, whether it's like spinning or dyeing or anything like that, there's always this sense of, for me anyway, like excitement, like, oh, okay, we are on a different level of understanding each other, because now you have this passion that I have as well.
Right. And you know, don't you think too that that, you know, we had the internet obviously before the pandemic, but don't you feel like the pandemic bumped everything up like a million notches? I mean, anybody that was posting photos on Facebook might now be posting videos and advertising themselves and marketing themselves. And I just think, I mean, out of such a terrible time, I just think that we really made lemonade out of lemons, you know?
Yeah, well, and you know, I think for me, I think the thing that's really nice about the Wool and Fiber Arts group too is that it really allows you, and again, I was like speaking with this about this with Ellen yesterday, was that it really allows you to watch the fibers journey. So like where is the source coming from, like with the shepherds, and you know, for those that are the dyers, like, you know, where does the fiber and the material that I use come from, and whose hands has it gone through? And there's such a, you know, beautiful sentiment, I think, that comes with using materials, knowing that this is something that your friend created. It's not like, you know, ordering from like a catalog or something like that, and you know, you don't really know the person, you don't know the name, and so like just a big, you know, shout out to you for your help, right? Because like I needed silk fiber and you had like all of these wonderful, amazing fibers. But like even in like your description of like who you are and what you do, you know, not that it's like so much of a mystery, but it seems like you cover all the tick boxes. So when I was, you know, asking the different people that I'm interviewing for the Fiberside Chats, like, what are you? Are you a shepherd? Are you a dyer? You know, and you just kind of like filled everything up. So if you can you let people know, how would you describe yourself in like under 300 words?
Yeah. You know, I always say to the customers, to anyone who asks, that my main gig is I'm a seamstress. My day job is upholstery. I've taught sewing endlessly. I taught sewing for 5 years in Detroit to homeless women. And that was probably the highlight of my sewing career, if you want to call it that. Just seeing people who were down and out gain a new skill and a hireable skill. And then when you know, and I was already in the fiber community at that time. I just kind of stepped away to take this position in Detroit because I really felt strongly about it. But when I got back to fiber art, I started noticing this gap, if you will. And some people may disagree with me. I don't know. This was just my perception. There was a gap in skills when it came to, okay, we've made this fabric now, whether we've woven it, whether we've knitted it, it's fabric. And that's really what we do in fiber art, I think, right? We're making fabric. Now, some people may say, I'm making a sweater, or I'm, you know, or I'm weaving placemats, or I'm, you know, it's all fabric. And when we look at it that way, then we start to see sewing machines. And then I think that's when a lot of fear comes in. And even when even when I was struggling with you, I said, oh, if I could just sit next to you and play with those dials, you know, and help you out. But I noticed that there were people that really wanted to make clothing. And of course, that's my degree is in fashion design from Chicago. And that was, you know, I had a business in clothing design for like 10 years. And then I got into fiber art. And then there was this oh, I have this beautiful fabric, but I don't know what to do with it. I kind of think I want to make clothes, but now I have to cut it. And oh my God, what do I do now? And, and truly hand woven fabric is, I mean, in theory and concept, it's no different from any other fabric that you may buy, but it just really ravels. And of course you need to have, you got to do some special stuff to it to keep it together. And I think that fear is really keeping fiber artists out, a little bit away from sewing. So my main gig this year is I've got a workshop called Sewing for the Fiber Artists. I'm so excited about it. I'm still working on my samples. Actually, a few months ago, I did a workshop, or I did a demo, I'm sorry, an online demo for couching, which is one of the ways that you can sew with your yarn. But, I'm sorry, what was the question? I completely, I just lost
I was just curious, well, like, cause you said that you do all these things, right? So obviously in talking about this, you're telling us that like you're a seamstress and you've been into the fashion design part and, with sewing and the fiber arts and teaching other people how to sew. So you've kind of covered the gamut of that, but is there anything else that you've done, or if you want to keep going on about what this course is about, I'd love to hear it. Cause, definitely as someone that makes fabric, right, in woven fabric. I know that I really used Julie's brain power, and she was amazing at, like, I don't know, 7 o'clock on a Friday night. And I'm like, here's a picture. What is going on? Like, help me. And she was more than generous with her time. But yeah, definitely, I think that there is a fear of cutting into fabric, even for people that like do steeking, right? Because the idea that, it takes so long to get to this place, and if I make a mistake, that's it. Like it's curtains. But even just something as simple as like making a parallel swatch, right? And then practicing on a swatch until you get your fear or get over those nerves of cutting it. I think sometimes that's really helpful. And I took a class that, local to me, where they were teaching something similar about like how you can cut into and sew together hand woven fabric. And the teacher gave us some of their scraps. And I thought that was awesome, because then I didn't feel an emotional attachment or connection to the fabric when cutting it. And I think, when you know how much time goes into making something, which is kind of sad, right? Because if you think of us buying things commercially, still time had to go into the making of that fabric, but we just don't associate it with our time. And our time is something that can't be replaced. Somehow other people's time can be, purchased with money and replaced, but it's like our time that's super special. So when we get to this point where we're like ready to transform the fabric we created into something that's maybe more of like a finished product, to have this like service of yours, of this class that kind of alleviates that fear, I think is amazing. So if you want to tell me more about all the stuff that you do, all the hats you wear, or more about the course, feel free. You can choose your own adventure.
Oh, sure. Sounds good. Well, like I said, sewing's always been my main gig. And it's funny because when I'm in my booth and I'm selling, you're standing in the middle of this hand spun yarn and fiber, and I'm like, I'm a seamstress, and everybody's like, what? But it's true. And again, it all comes down to we're creating fabric. That's the way I look at fiber art. We're creating fabric, and all the things you can do with fabric. And so when you look at another aspect of this workshop that I am really the most excited about, and a little nervous too, because I'm nervous about teaching this. I'm hoping that everyone knows their equipment and their sewing machine well enough that we can really get into these special techniques. But when you think about making fabric, you think about weaving, knitting, crocheting, and all of these different ways. But think about an art yarn, and a yarn that maybe is bulkier. You wouldn't immediately think about knitting it, although there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm going to be demonstrating I'm going to be teaching a way to make fabric out of yarn, where the yarn is just stitched together, and you see all the yarn. It's not lost in all those little loops and everything that you get with knitting, or even with the warp thread, coming over your yarn. You know how sometimes it can kind of not hide it, but it can kind of subdue it a little bit. But I've often you lay out your art yarn and you look at it and you're like, gosh, that's beautiful. I just want to see the yarn. And that is what I am working out and teaching in this workshop, taking yarns that you really want to see and showcasing them. And there's couching, there's the stitching I'm going to be showing. There's we're also going to be taking art yarn that may be more cord-like, like maybe say a cabled yarn that you've plied, end plied 3 times or whatever, and it makes a cord. And we're going to be making frog closures. We're going to be making closures, loops, Chinese ball buttons. There are so many things you can do with your yarn that have nothing to do with weaving and knitting, and those are fine. I don't have any shade on those at all, but I'm a seamstress, and when I look at yarn, I think a little differently. I think this would be an awesome Chinese ball button on a coat that you might weave. And so, when you make a beautiful garment and you're looking for closures, why go out and buy them? Make them. You can make almost anything for your garment. You really can. And so these are just some fun things we're going to be learning. I think they're different. I know I've never seen them taught at fiber shows, and I'm just really hoping that I can move fiber artists into more ways to express their creativity, and shoot, maybe even if somebody starts sewing their fiber art, they may actually really get into dressmaking and sewing clothing just from good old Joanne fabrics, and you never know where it's going to take you. And I think that exposure is everything. I don't think a lot of fiber artists have been exposed to sewing methods and sewing techniques, and that's what I aim to do. So
yeah, no, this sounds really fascinating. So is it going to be in an online format or in person, or how can we take this class with you?
It is starting out. The first time I'm teaching it will be at Michigan Fiber Fest in Allegan in August this year. And then a couple weeks later, I will be teaching it at Wisconsin Sheep and Wool. So okay. I am so geeked. I never in a million years imagined I'd be able to, to do this kind of thing. And it's just wonderful being so welcomed and so, encouraged to do this.
Yeah, well, if you want to turn it into an online format, please have that conversation with me, because one, I know that I'm interested in taking it, and as someone that's not able to get to Michigan, that would be awesome. But also, I think that's something that's a really nice, I don't know, quality or change maybe that also has happened because of COVID and with the Wool and Fiber Arts group too, is that, now there's so many classes that maybe we didn't have access to before because of not being able to attend these in-person shows. And so the idea of being able to access content online on demand, that's just so appealing, especially when you're having someone that knows what they're talking about helping you, right? Because I know sometimes you can go and say to someone, hey, how should I do this? And they'll be like, oh, go check it out on YouTube. And YouTube is great, but for the most part, when it comes to the high level of skills and techniques and stuff like that, being able to actually have someone that is able to teach you and, give you these process step-by-steps, and give you the feedback and all of that, that's really where I think the genuine learning comes from. So, everything has its place, but I would love to be able to take this class from you. So just some food for thought to consider. I think
who's inspired me about that is Mary from Kamaj Fiber Arts, because a year ago she took her whole gig and just started doing online workshops, which is awesome because Mary lives in Florida. I'm in Michigan. When am I going to cross paths with her to take a in-person workshop? So definitely that's probably like the final frontier for me. After I really get into teaching at fiber shows, which I did last year, but to translate that all to an online workshop for folks that, that just can't make it and can't get out and can't, go to these things. Definitely. And again, it's just the way the online presence has escalated since the pandemic it's just amazing to me. And I'm just thrilled to be able to jump in on that. So, but yeah.
And so like when you're talking about making not only like actually sewing the fabric, but even making the button closures and things like that, it just made me think about the fact that so many times when people are using yarn, initially anyway, that there is a fear of not even seeing themselves as an artist, but kind of being creative and doing things that maybe they would put the label on, am I doing it right? Or is this wrong? And that I have to like follow a pattern and, like there's a certain set way to do it. Right. And so I think the idea of having more classes that really allow people to kind of explore their own personal expression using fibers as a medium is something that really excites me, because you can like go into a library and get a book, and follow a pattern and like, this is how you make this type of seam or whatever. But when you're working with handwoven fabric, and like you were saying, there are all of these beautiful nuances with like hand spun yarn, and even if you want to make art yarn and things like that, that when you learn the skill, then you don't have to follow a pattern. Now you can apply your skill and kind of whatever you imagine becomes possible. And I think that's really awesome. And when you were describing doing that with yarn, I know before I was even a spinner, I was really into embroidery and cross stitch and all of that. And I know I went to like one type of it was like a textile embroidery conference thing in England, and they had this, I don't know what it was called. It was like this type of fabric that almost like melted in water, and like you could sandwich threads in between it and sew them and do these like really cool pictures. And there's like so many amazing, it's almost like embroidery thread portrait art. So it's just like the threads sewn onto each other. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's so cool. And like the fact that you can take that and do that with hand spun is just like, so really, really excited to see, whatever samples you create or whatever, because, I think it can be daunting too. Like a lot of people will think or say, well, it's not done as hand spun, like it has to be something else. And the fact that you can just leave it as yarn and not necessarily have it be woven or knitted or crocheted, it could just be yarn that's kind of like sandwiched together and doing its own thing. I think that's really cool. Yeah. So I would love to see, do you have any pieces or projects that you've done this technique with, or has it just been more the skill that you've been practicing?
I've been practicing the skill and trying to learn myself the best way to make it not overwhelming. So basically I've been doing, I've learned that the best size to stick to for these pieces are about 2 to 3 inches. And then you go back and you sew those together. So I've been working on my samples, and by the time I'm done, I'm going to have so much fabric that I can, make something from. But you guys will be the first to see, everything that I do. And
so can we get a little sneak peek? Because I didn't prep you for this. So if you don't have it, no worries. But do you have any like samples in arm's reach that we could just kind of get like a little sneak peek or see?
Oh gosh, it's right over on my machine. So if I can step away for 2 seconds, I will grab it. So.
Okay, sure. If you feel comfortable doing that, or you could always take a picture and then post it in the comments. Okay, so you're gonna step away. Cool. All right.
I'm right here.
Okay.
That was fast. Fast. This is one of the 2, like a roughly 2-inch samples that you can see. This is just yarn laid out, and then I stitched it just to nail it down. And then what else we're going to do too is we're going to show how to take your piece. Once you stitch all of your 2-inch pieces together, then you can go back and we can do free motion stitching all over. Wow. And in order to do that, we will be covering up feed dogs. The feed dogs are the part of the machine that grabs the fabric and pulls it under the presser foot. We're going to be covering those up and not using those. And we're going to be guiding the fabric, just guiding it around. The stitch length is created by how you push your fabric through. So that way we'll be able to take your hand spun yarn and then add decorative embroidery threads to it, add, shiny silk threads, add glitz and metallic if you want. And it's interesting that you brought up the technique of the sandwiching, because we're going to talk about that too. What I used to use was really drapey silks and then not so drapey silks like silk organza, and sandwiching things in between. And I've even seen it done with netting and tulle as well. So, and it's all. But
did you ever get a chance to use that dissolvable fabric? You know what I'm talking about? I don't know the technical name, so forgive me for those of you that are professional fabric sewers and know the right name for it.
Yeah, it's a wash away stabilizer. Salvi makes one, and then there's some generic stuff out there too. I've bought in a couple of the generics and I didn't like them, and I still firmly believe that the easiest way to do this is to line up the fabrics on the bed of your sewing machine, or line up the yarns on the bed of your machine and pull them together and push them through. Because if you're only working with 2-inch strips, you're not going to be like, oh my God, it's falling behind the machine, it's falling all over the place. None of that's going to happen. You're going to be in control all the time.
Yeah, I definitely think that like sewing machines and spinning wheels are similar in some ways, in the sense that when you're a beginner of either sewing or spinning, right, that it can be very intimidating when you don't know what all of the parts do, right? So like if you're a spinner and you don't know, or if you're beginning to spin and you don't know what the tension break band is, and you're wondering like, why does my yarn keep like playing tug of war with me, or twist is going in but it's not like going onto the bobbin, and it could be simply because your yarn is like wrapped around one of the eye hooks or something, and it's like, no, it's really simple. You just like take a deep breath and step back from it for a minute. So I definitely feel like sewing machines can have that intimidating quality about them. I think with like knitting needles and crochet hooks, it's more confusing about what comes next, so like you're the one that's using the tool, but it's like, I don't know where to stick what, so definitely having someone that can show you, the tips and the tricks to make it easier, then I think it alleviates that frustration that we can have, because we can see something that we really like. We're just not sure how we can get from point A to point B. And I'm curious because I know, you have the loom behind you and all of that. And I know that in interacting with you that we're both really into this Saori style of weaving. So I'm just curious, when you're talking about sewing woven fabric into clothing, do you tend to have more of that kind of freeform Saori approach? Like we're going to put something on, what do they call it? Like not a mannequin, but like, the dress form, and then like build your clothing that way? Or do you actually like try to find patterns, like clothing patterns that, a person might like, and then try to make that connection with like their hand woven fabrics and how to make the hand woven fabric fit the commercial pattern?
I am not a draper. Okay. Draping is the art of, draping fabric on a dress form and pinning and tucking and creating your design that way. That is something I did in design school and something I did with clothing, my clothing design business. But with hand woven fabrics, which is primarily what I work with now, everything is rectangles, everything is squares, everything is where it is very simple, and you let the fabric do all the work. You let the fabric do all of the design element. The eye-popping wow factor is your yarn and your fabric. The coats that I make are all rectangles. My customers this weekend at Ann Arbor at the Fiber Expo, we just finished it up yesterday. They just couldn't believe. I said, this started out as a square, the sweater I had on. I folded it on the diagonal, and now it's bias and drapey. And they were feeling the fabric. And of course that aesthetic, that being able to feel something in person is just, you can't match it online. But, they said, in this fabric, it's heavy and yet it's so drapey. And I said, yes, if you work with the bias, that's what you get, and it's just not the first thing that fiber artists will always think of. Seamstresses will, but fiber artists won't. And I want to join up those two fields, those two arts, and really make fiber artists think differently and not differently, but further, just to think more of what they can do they can do more. So I haven't used a pattern. I haven't used a commercial pattern. I have them. I think they're kind of damp over there in the basement here. I don't, you know, and you really, when you're talking about hand woven fabric and fabric that you have designed, again, whether you knit it or whether you, another thing I want to do too, just a side note, sorry, sidebar, I want to get a knitting machine and I want to knit fabric and I want to cut and sew it. That's my next gig. Like I need another hobby, like a hole in the head, but you know, this is another thing that I want to do too. It's the same idea. It's all
well, see,
fabric.
this is why you and I think are kindred spirits, because we both have this like love and curiosity for exploration. Let's try things. If it doesn't work, oh well, you know, we'll move on to something else. And I wanted to speak to two things of what you said, because I know I'm going to forget them. But the first was the fact of, well, like, so what I asked you, right? Like if you use patterns or if you just kind of go with the fabric. And I did try that approach. Again, I've never made clothes before. And I made this skirt that is literally like all hand woven yarn that it was, I think it was like the first thing that I ever wove on my rigid head loom. Maybe I did like one thing first. Like I did this little pouch over here and I have it in my closet. I can show you. But the thing that I'm like so scared about and I never wear it is because as not having that like, you know, seamstress or like garment construction mentality, I didn't consider things like the weight of the fabric and how that would influence areas where, you know, it might pull or tug and, you know, all of that. So I feel like there are parts of it that are very, you know, fragile. And so it wasn't even what my sewing machine did, but it was in the construction of it that I feel like it's going to self-destruct. And so that's why I'm kind of afraid to wear it. So again, this would be another reason why I would love your class to like understand, okay, how can you reinforce parts of the fabric, right? Like if you think of, you know, like a wool coat, like a tweed coat or something that's made with woven fabric, you know, you want to make sure that you're reinforcing certain parts so that like the shoulder part or something, you know, like the parts that are going to bear the weight of the garment. So I would love to learn about things like that. So if you want to give me a private lesson, if you do those, I would love you for it. Oh shoot. See, I told you there was two things in the second one. Oh, wait. We were talking about, all right. Poop. You said something and I had something that I wanted to ask you.
Oh, don't you?
All right, yeah, I have goldfish brain this morning. Okay, this afternoon.
Green.
Right, let's see here. Oh, you were talking about knitting machines. That's right. Okay, so when I was like I don't even know why I wanted to get into a knitting machine. I think it was one of those things where I made a couple of sweaters and garments like from hand knitting them, and I was like happy with how they came out, but I felt like the process of knitting, right? Like I came into knitting and weaving and all of that because I wanted to find something to do with my hand spun yarn. And I really love spinning. And so even though I do enjoy knitting, I'm one of those people, because I know people will say, well, oh, when you get a knitting machine, it's not like hand knitting, right? It's not that repetitive, you know, calming, soothing type of tactile input, you know, sensory input sensation that you get from hand knitting is very different with machine knitting, you know, so it might be the difference between, you know, cooking a gourmet meal versus using a frozen dinner, you know, in a microwave, right? Like, yeah, you're getting food, but they're kind of different, you know, and each has its pros and cons. But I love the knitting machine because, like you said, you can speed up the process of the fabric creation. And I think that's something that I really enjoy and love about it. But again, just like with the sewing machine, it has a lot of, I would say, places where you can have hiccups, you know, and it seems like, okay, I have all of the settings, you know, good to go. And this looks like it's going to work. And then all of a sudden it self-combusts on you and you don't know why. So, you know, with my knitting machine, I also have that love-hate relationship that I do with my sewing machine. But when you're talking about cutting up the fabric, when I first got the knitting machine, I'm like, you know what, I probably should take a class on how to use this, because I'm one of those people that will try something before reading the instructions. And this is not that, you know, like the sewing machine and then the knitting machine, those are things that you do not want to try first before reading the instructions. You will break things like, yeah, just, I'm speaking from experience here, okay? Like I've broken things only to like have to go back and get them repaired and then take the class. So always take the class first. That's just, yeah, on those things. You want to play around with knitting needles and crochet hooks, fine, you go do you. But when it comes to knitting machine, please don't do that, save yourself. But when I was taking this class, there was this, you know, maybe, I don't know, like 80-year-old lady that was this amazing knitting machine, you know, guru. She had like all of these machines set up in her basement. And I was taking this class with her, and like 2 other people were in it. And this one lady was like, yeah, I'm really interested in making my own knitted fabric to turn into garments. And she just, like, I don't know, it was so amazing watching the process of, I don't know how to use a knitting machine, to now she became on this like full on, fashion designer. If anyone wants to look her up, her name is Andrea Greer, and she's just amazing. And now she's like taking it where she's like printing on the knitted fabrics and all. I don't know if you're familiar with like her, just like seeing people that cut it up, but it's amazing how what people make with a knitting machine is so different, stylistically and concept wise from hand knitting. It seems definitely more on the high end, of fashion. And I think it's so fascinating because maybe if you're a spinner, you don't think your yarn may fall into that like high fashion, category or whatever, but it really is so amazing to see all of the different ways that one can use yarn and thread and fiber and fabric. So from your perspective, right, what is like your most favorite thing to do, right? I know, like you said, you're a sewer and a weaver and a spinner and all of that, but like of all of the things, if you had to pick, do you have a favorite, or is it like trying to pick a favorite kid? And we all know everybody has a favorite kid, but okay.
Yes, I even do. And all those Facebooks you see, I love my kids. Yeah, well, some more than others. But
depends on the day and how close they are to being a teenager, right?
Yeah. Oh gosh. The favorite technique.
Or just like the favorite thing, like, if you could just like spend like hours or days, what is the thing that you get lost in that just brings you so much joy in doing it?
That would have to be spinning. It really would. Spinning the yarn, because you know what it's like. It takes time to spin yarn. And all that time that you're spinning, I'm thinking of the ways it's going to be used, or if I'm going to sell it, or usually I'll be like, well, I hope it doesn't sell, because then I can take it and I can do what I want with it. It's always this crazy wish. I don't want it to sell. Yes and no. But I would have to say spinning, only because it's so much more tactile than sewing. I know that sounds weird, like, well, sewing is definitely hands-on, of course, but when you're actually separating out the very fibers of the yarn of what you're doing, that's a level that is, and then of course, when you talk to people and you say, I start this coat started as sheep or a fleece on a sheep's back, and you've got people not quite in the fiber know, and they're just amazed, like, how is that possible? And of course, we're seeing a resurgence, yeah, I would say a resurgence of handmade, of slowing down the process of making garments and really understanding what goes into a garment. I think that in general, people today have no idea. They don't know that clothing is disposable today. And that, that really bothers a lot of us purists. We would mend it a million times before we would buy something else. But I've got to say that spinning is, because spinning leads to the other stuff. Spinning leads to sewing, spinning leads to knitting, whatever, and we're not even talking about dyeing right now either. Now, Missy, I will say you way back, I mean, I don't know how many years ago it was, but when I started dyeing way back in 2008, I had figured out my method for percentage dyeing, and I had no idea if it was right or wrong. I mean, other than the results I got, sometimes it worked, sometimes it was a hit or miss, but when I met you and I was able to find out, hey, is this how you would calculate it? Is this how you, and again, it's that camaraderie with other fiber artists that is wonderful. But I would definitely say spinning, just because spinning leads to so many other things. Spinning leads to everything else,
Yeah, all roads come from spinning, right? Yeah. And I think, what's interesting too, and like the more that I learn about it and just the way that our brains work and process information, and as like a coping mechanism and a strategy, especially someone that has ADHD, I really find that the sensory tactile input that spinning has on your body, and like physically feeling the twist travel up, you know, the fiber, there's something that I can tell you on this, you know, cellular level that I feel like it kind of is like a fuel recharging station for me, you know, that feeling that twist, turn it into yarn, seeing the magic of it, seeing the magic of the colors transform, of it going on the bobbin, physically like using your body to create this thing that couldn't really otherwise exist, you know, like aside from machines and stuff like that, but just even knowing that early on humans could perceive that fiber could be turned into yarn, and then all of the possibilities that gave way to, right, in the making of clothing and sails and just all like the history of it. Like it's so rich and there's so much in it that, yeah, I mean, I know you're preaching to the choir here, but I totally agree that, you know, spinning is definitely where my heart lies, and everything else builds upon that as the, you know, foundation. So totally agree with you there. Okay. So
I don't want to interrupt you, but I will just add one point about spinning, and really all of our fiber art that we enjoy, anything that we enjoy doing with our hands. A lot of people know I have two sons with autism. They're young adults. They're oh my God, they're 21 and 23 now. Gee whiz. And of course I have my daughter too, who's 27. But 10 years ago, 12 years ago, my youngest son was a nightmare, and I had no outlet for this. I had no way to deal with this. There was all kinds of things going on at the time, divorce, you know, the kids, the boys, the autism, my daughter dealing with it all. Spinning, when I took it up, was the only thing I could control. It was like something that I knew that yarn on the bobbin was exactly the way I wanted it to be, when everything else around me was just, yeah, you know, when I'm getting phone calls that my son is being kicked out of preschool because he dumps a sand table on some kid's head, you know, it's just like, oh my God, you know, and I think a lot of us have that too. This is therapy, man. This is working with your hands. Working with your hands is never going to do you wrong. It's always going to strengthen your brain, strengthen your psyche, your emotions, and help you deal with life. I mean, it sounds grandiose, but I'm serious. I can personally say that that's what it did for me. So I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but when you talked about
no, I totally agree with you. Even like before even knowing like what social anxiety was, I have a little bag with knitting that, you know, anywhere that I go, it comes with me. Even if I don't take the knitting out, it just feels like a little safety blanket that if I'm amongst people that are making me feel, you know, anxious or awkward, I can always grab my knitting and I'm good. But what's even better though, is knowing that if someone sees me knitting and then they're a knitter too, then I automatically like, if I'm like over here, you know, it just drops me down and I feel, yes, okay, I'm around my people, I'm around somebody that understands, you know, and it just, it's amazing. And I think that's another reason that I love the Wool and Fiber Arts group too, is because it's just being around people that get it, you know, and there are a lot of unspoken benefits and rewards. It's not just the sweater. I can tell you that at least 90% of the things that I spin and knit and weave, I never wear, I never use them. It's not even about the finished product. It's about what the actual act of creating does in, like I said, you know, keeping that fuel in the car going. But I want to make sure before we run out of time, because I really appreciate all of your time this afternoon. In the spirit of all of the previous Fiberside chats we've been talking about and celebrating, I've been having my guests pick out a holiday of their choosing. Now, I have to say, Julie, okay, there was a lot of holidays to pick from today. So for those of you that don't know, right, today is National Pet Day, which if you know anything about me, I have cats and I would have loved to talk about, okay? Today is also Education and Sharing Day. We're both teachers and we love to share. So you could have gone that route, but no, it's also Cheese Fondue Day and I love food, okay? But you chose to go to the Barbershop Quartet Day. Now, I cannot sing, so I am not going to be joining you, but if there's anything that you would like to share with us about your love of singing or music or barbershop quartetting, take it away.
Well, believe it or not, singing and vocal performance was going to be my life. I started studying it And then I ended up with terrible allergies where I lived. So I decided to go into fashion design. And here we are all these years later. But I have, of course, continued singing. I sing in weddings, I sing at funerals, I used to sing in a group called the Seaway Chorale, and they really were wonderful to me. They let me have the spotlight so many times, and I just love it. So in honor of National Barbershop Quartet Day, I can do hello, 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 hello. So
I thought maybe we were going to get a little bit of that, happy birthday, Waffle, to you. But again, I'm not a singer. I don't want to torture anybody.
I even started writing a little song for Waffle because, you can't have any pre-recorded anything, So it was something like, Waffle, we hope you will enjoy the show. Waffle, we're so sorry to see you go. So, I got to flesh that one out. I got to flesh it
Okay.
out.
We'll definitely have the red curtain, drawn and have the roses to throw and all of that. So, but thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today and your just your company and your conversation. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Julie. You're an amazing guest. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Is there anything real quick that you want to share with anyone that I didn't get to cover before we go for today?
Just both. Come here, Patrick. It's Patrick time. I can bring him in, right?
Sure, of course.
He's the other half. We just want to say again that the friendships we have made during this tough time, the pandemic, and just the people. We love you all. And it sounds cheesy to say that. Yeah, we really do appreciate and love and the emails and messages that we get, oh, Julie, we love what you do. Oh, where's Patrick? Where is he? That stuff just stays with you. And really, I don't know, we go to bed at night knowing we're doing the right thing. And that's it's just fantastic. And
I'll just add that even with the show that we did over the past weekend, the common theme that I heard from a lot of customers and a lot of people stopping by the booth is this woman has got talent. She's got great products, great colors, and that was the overriding theme this show. So
I got to
keep up the good work.
I got to keep the cart moving. Yeah, I guess
everybody loves your stuff. So
and but it's because of everybody. It's because of all of the wonderful fiber artists that let us do this. So yeah, that's the main thing I want to get out there, that we really do love you guys. It's not just a stupid thing to say. It's true. Yeah, we really do.
Well, there's tons of hearts flooding in the comment section. So I'm gonna go see if there are any questions, but it just seems like a lot of people are sending love, and there's also a lot of greetings to Patrick. So there's hi Patrick, and Patrick is such a sweetheart. Oh, now the hearts are just like going off. I don't know if you can see, but they're just they're exploding like bubbles. Okay.
I'm chopped liver. Call him.
I don't know. I can't tell. Maybe there was a delay and it was for your singing, but I don't know. I'm gonna have to kind of say it was for Patrick. So. But we can say it was for your singing.
Oh, thank you so much, Alanna. I have been so geeked about this. I've been so excited, and I'm just thank you so much. This is just wonderful.
My pleasure. So thank you to everybody in the Wool and Fiber Arts community for coming and joining us. If you're catching this on the replay, if you have any questions for Julie or myself, feel free to put them in the comments. And just so you know, next week on April 18th, that's on Monday at 1 p.m., I'm going to be interviewing Susan Needle of Exquisite Yarns and Rovings and Fuzzy Wuzzy Rabbitry. So I'm super excited because I love animals, and bunnies are no exception. So if you want to come and join us for that, that would be awesome. And if you would like to see any of the previous Fiberside Chats, you can just go ahead and either search or click on the hashtag Fiberside Chats in the Wool and Fiber Arts group, and you can see all of the amazing vendors and fiber artists and creators that I've interviewed up to this point. So Julie, thank you for being my number 9. I appreciate it, but you'll always be number 1 in my heart, and much love to you too, Patrick. Thank you for all that you do in sharing with this fiber community.
I'm just trying to help her out and promote us, and you know, I'm having a blast doing it.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Alanna.
All right, take care, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye.